Welcome to another edition of On Point. I'm James Scully, joined by Vance Hanson, and we've got some turf racing to talk about this weekend, Vance. We'll start overseas with the 238th running of the English Derby. Vance, any opinions on the English Derby?
The final declarations are Thursday morning. I'm going to wade through the possible 19-20 horse field at that time. As far as the most visually impressive winner of a prep race, I thought Best Solutions race in the Lingfield Derby trial was looked pretty good visually. He's trading about 10-1 in overseas markets. I'm not completely sold on him, but if you had to press me for a pick now, that's who I would give you.
Yeah, and it's like the race really, just like reading up on it, looking, spending a little time researching it, doesn't have that star quality. Like Churchill was like our standout in the 2000 Guineas and is really a 3-year-old that they're very high on. And, you know, the English Derby is much more wide open. O'Brien has I think he had 7 early entries. I don't know how many he'll have, but Gosden has a whole bunch of them. I'll mention a couple from Godolphin. Ben Battle, who broke his maiden, has run well in 2 stakes, could be ready to take another step forward. And even Dubai Thunder, who's going to be tested for class and, you know, seasoning, having only 1 race, but it was an impressive one. And a lightweight race type like that, I think, has a chance to perhaps fare well against this company.
Yeah, I concur with you. The prep season over the last 6 weeks or so, dating back to the Guineas, was not overly impressive. Nobody jumped out at me. The favorite at the moment is Cracksman from the barn of John Gosden, who prepped in what is called the Derby trial at Epsom over 1.25 miles. He just got up to win that particular race. It's uncertain whether he's a 1.5 mile type horse or not. I think he's a bit of an underlay to me at this point based on just his limited resume.
And they also have the Epsom Oaks. I haven't taken a close look at that, but do you have any fillies you fancy for the Oaks?
I was looking at that this morning. Final entries came out. Of course, we have an American entry, Daddy's Little Darling, the Kentucky Oaks runner-up. Now, a quarter century ago, we had Dr. Devious prep in the Kentucky Derby and then went on to win the Epsom Derby. We haven't had an Oaks winner.
For Derby Day and Farm, wouldn't it? I'm not sure.
It was Jenny Craig, actually.
Jenny Craig, okay.
But we haven't had a Oaks winner come out of the Kentucky Oaks yet, but Kenny McPeak's filly is going to take her shot at it. Rhododendron from the Aidan O'Brien stable is trading at odds on right now, a tough luck second in the 1,000 Guineas. 4 to 5 or whatever she's going to be just seems a little bit too low for me. I thought the 2 fillies coming out of the Cheshire Oaks, Enable from John Gosden and Alluringly, another Aidan O'Brien filly, I thought those 2 ran extremely well. And there's a couple other fillies that are also pretty interesting. It's a field of 10, very fascinating race if you're unwilling to take odds on Rhododendron. Like I'm going to pass on that.
Yeah, well, the international racing really continues to get more and more exposure in America, and look forward to watching those races on Saturday morning or early afternoon as well. But turning our attention to the American racing, a couple 3-year-old turf stakes of interest this weekend. The Penn Mile, which is $500,000 1-mile race at Penn National, and the Pennine Ridge, a 1 1/8 $200,000 race at Belmont, essentially a prep for the Belmont Derby. Any thoughts on the Penn Mile to begin with?
Big Score is going to be the favorite off his form in Kentucky recently. The horse that I kind of looked at pretty closely was Holiday Stone, who just narrowly missed a Big Score in the Transylvania at Keeneland at big odds. He was on the lead that day. I don't think that's his best game. He's kind of a horse that likes to stalk and pounce for his best effort. He too ran in the American turf last time like a Big Score, buried on the rail, and of course that was really, really soft, and I didn't think we saw a representative effort from him that particular day. So Holiday Stone might be a horse to look at a decent price.
I'll mention one in there as well, Time to Travel, be making his turf debut for Michael Matz, but he's a full brother to Heartspun Colt, full brother to multiple Grade 1 turf winner, Hard to Like. Comes off a good second, I thought, in the Sir Barton and Pimlico. So how about the Pennine Ridge?
Well, Good Samaritan, you know, it was a hard luck beaten favorite in the Breeders' Cup last fall. Didn't have the best of trips in the American turf either in his season debut. There's not a whole lot of pace to this particular race. The Breeders' Cup winner, Oscar Performance, is in there, but he's not been running particularly well.
Yeah, exactly,
and even if he does get a lonely lead out there, chances are he might not hold on. One horse I thought that was kind of interesting in there was Ticonderoga from Chad Brown, narrowly beaten by Good Samaritan in their mutual debut at Saratoga last summer. Good Samaritan probably had the worst trip of everybody in the Breeders' Cup, but Ticonderoga was even farther behind than Good Samaritan was and came up for fourth, and won a stake at Gulfstream over the winter, and then ran fourth in the Transylvania after a wide trip. So I expect him to move forward over a track that he likes.
Yeah, and you always have to respect those Chad Brown trained turf horses. You know, Good Samaritan, Belmont's been a little bit cold of late, but really a bang up second, like you mentioned, in the American Turf at Churchill Downs. So before we get out of here, we're a week and a half away from the Belmont Stakes final leg of the American Triple Crown. Any early thoughts on how that's shaping up?
Classic Empire obviously is the horse to beat, and it's just a question of what kind of a price he's going to be. I mean, I can see 2-1 maybe, but that might be a little bit too low. It's definitely worth looking around the field. It's going to be a big field. I thought maybe Taprit is a horse that could improve after a decent Derby performance for Todd Pletcher, who really likes to point for this particular race. So I'm still going to obviously wait till we see how the race looks when it's drawn a week from today, but those are obviously the two horses I'm kind of looking at right now.
Yeah, and I share your sentiments about Taprit. I think he's definitely eligible to improve upon that Derby sixth place effort. Well, we have, like you said, we got still plenty of a lot of these horses are going to record their final works for the mile-and-a-half Belmont, and we'll be back next week to talk about it, as well as the stakes-packed undercard featuring Songbird and about, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 stake races. So
It's going to be a lot.
Thanks for joining us. This is On Point.